Okay, I am here. I am back. I am coffeeed and ready to go, right? And this will be well worth it. This will be well worth it today. Because I'm going to talk about a real American classic. Like, I'm going to give you guys, and I'm giving you guys some really good research on an absolute American classic. Like, this is all about American fantasy, like how we really came about it. You know what? Let me do this real quick. I think that's light's throwing me off. It's kind of creating, a little more contrast than what I like. Okay, this is a whole lot better, right? Okay, this is a whole lot better. So I'm gonna give you guys a breakdown. What's up, Doomy? Yeah, you're gonna like this one. I really took my time to cook with this one, right? Because this is this is a massively important product of American culture. This is American culture with some help, right? This is American fantasy culture combining with like some Celtic mystical beliefs, combining with like some Japanese animation, right? Like this is all the elements that go to making The Last Unicorn, right? But this is classic right here. This is absolutely classic in so many ways. And I just saw it on, and that's the thing, it's always available, right? No, it's all good, man. Just, your presence here, man. Yeah. Your presence here is good enough, man. Don't worry about it. Again, I'm here for you right now. Okay? That's the whole thing. I'm here for you right now. If you can tune in and listen, I'm going to cook for you right now. I'm going to give you guys like a good, 40 minutes of some in-depth analysis of some stuff, right? Like this is me putting on I'm gonna go do some homework type of scenario when it comes to doing prep, right? So that's what I'm doing. This is me. I'm literally doing my homework. That's my night. I get my prep together and I put this together for you guys, right? And this is well worth it. This is one of those truly when someone says a labor of love or a love of labor. I can't remember how that one goes, but this is whatever that is. Whatever that is, where it's labor and it's love at the same time, this is what this is, right? Because you guys know I love mythology, right? You know I love storytelling. You know I love animation. So this is everything all leaped into one, like everything that I love, right? Mystical animals, sacred spaces, magic, right? The whole nine, right? The whole nine. And this is a story, man, that has a particular place in my heart, right? This came out, remember, the book, now this all comes from a novel, just to kind of give you guys a setting. Remember I tell you, mythology is nothing without its historical context, like where this stuff came out. Now the novel itself was written by a Peter S. Bagel, and this is published as The Last Unicorn in 1968. And this is during a major transformation in fantasy literature, and it really was. And this book was so unique because it helps understand the fantasy world look like at this time. It's a very important view of the early establishments of what would be our fantasy culture and world. They start here. I mean, it didn't literally start here, but this is the time period when that was going on. Where as a culture, we were developing what we thought the fantasy world did. Because this is again fresh off of Lord of the Rings, which was the 60s when the films got made on that, right? So the taste for fantasy was high. We were riding high on fantasy, right? So this already kind of had us mad prep for ancient kingdoms, the idea of epic wars, dark lords in this fantasy world, heroic quests. This is when we're really we're heavy on heroic quests, right? We love heroic quests, all this stuff, right? Vast mythological stories. So we're already prepped for it. So by the time this rolls around, the audience is already oh yeah, about time, right? And that's what it felt like. This is how it really felt. So this is kind of a lot of people were trying to emulate what Tolkien had done at that period of time. Peter Bagel comes at it with a different angle, right? Instead of talking about the armies and the empire, the royal part of it, he focused on subtle things, right? Really subtle. This story is so subtle, right? You have to close your eyes and listen to the story because this is a story about some deep concepts. This is loneliness. This is identity. It has questions about love, about emotion. It heavily themes like, mortality, what it actually means to be human, what it means to be divine. This is about also the loss of wonder, like magic and wonder existing in the world, right? So this one is taking on like some of the heaviest concepts. It's like Lord of the Rings, but all the sad parts, like but sad, like entirely sad. Like imagine after Lord of the Rings and later, and then it's like everybody forgot all this stuff happened, right? That's what it feels like. Where we're losing it. Whereas like Lord of the Rings, we're in it. We're in the thrill of the genre, right? And even for Frodo, man, they talked about some things were forgotten that should not have been forgotten. All that, right? This is kind of on that path where the stuff that should have been forgotten has really been forgotten. This is like after. And this is a different question. This isn't like, how do we save the world? Because there's not an existential threat to the world. It doesn't exist here, right? It's not an existential threat here at the time. This is how do we keep the magic from the world from disappearing? That's the threat that this story actually reckons with. So this novel, man, I'm telling you guys, it's far more intimate. This is far more intimate. It's far more philosophical than most of the fantasy eras, films that you would see in this era. Like, it's way, way, way out there in that regard. And we get to see like some very interesting components, some very interesting personalities. Like, we have some interesting things. Like, I'm going to break into it here, but like, I really want you guys to know, I'm going to go through all the various components of what actually makes this story kind of what it is, right? And it's not because it's not just like, you can enjoy this on a surface level, right? Like, you really, really can. Like I would think that children would be able, like, you could throw this on with your kids and everybody have a good time, right? On some level, if you're into storytelling, if you're into animation, like, it has all those elements. It's built around a really, really good world. It just happens to have some heavy ass themes, right? This is like the fantasy world, like, depressed, right? It's that story, but it's done in such a way that it's more appreciated. It's very philosophical. So this is the time setting that, this is going in. This is like, the late 60s, right? His writing is constantly kind of shifting between, like, for the author, it's kind of fairy tale, the story itself, it's kind of comedy, it's kind of tragedy, it's myth, and it's philosophy. Like, he's throwing out a lot of things. Very consciously is he throwing out a lot of concepts. He's heavily pulling on, like, themes of regret and, like, oh, it's too late for me. Like, all that stuff exists. And everybody on some level is like, you're worthy of criticism. Everybody's actions on some level, you guys are worthy of some criticism here. But I don't think it runs away from that. This is kind of this melancholy atmosphere that is like the trademark of this novel. Like, I mean, seriously, this novel here, it is emotionally a lot of weightlifting, right? If you just kind of get story structure, if you kind of get like what it is, because you look at the heroes and everybody's kind of broken, right? Like, even the heroes, and I'll get into it. And the unicorn herself is, for all that she is, she isn't like wise. I mean, she is wise. She's wise, but yet she's very much ignorant at the same time. Like, there is she goes on a journey about loss. That's really what this is. Like, not so different than Frodo. You know how, like, Frodo starts off one way, by the end of the whole novel, Frodo is a whole different kind of person. Like, that's what this scenario is, right? Like, she's a whole different unicorn after all this is done. She is changed by this experience, right? And I'm telling you, this is like 120 minutes or something like that. Like, on this journey, you see her change. So this is brilliant writing. The idea is that it is suddenly like it's just a different look at that same fantasy world. the way that he puts it together, the angles that it takes, it just kind of brings it all together. And I still think this is one of the best classics. Like for animation, like I don't know if you guys really have tracked American animation. Like that was a thing for a long time. Like, and I don't mean that Disney nonsense. Like I guess we have animation now, but there was an era where our animation was like, I feel like the golden era was when like heavy metal was on, like, you know, around this time when, you know, this 80s, we had some really good animation. And this is in the company again. This is Bass Rankin. And I've talked about Bass Rankin a lot. Like Bass Rankin is that's the dude, man. Bass Rankin as a company, as a production company, like they have portrayed much of our cultural mythology. And I've talked about Bass Rankin because Bass Rankin, let me pull up my browser real quick, because Bass Rankin as a production company has portrayed like a significant foundation of our cultural mythology as Americans. And I'm telling you that it has. And I don't know if this is insidious or not. I don't know if it's insidious that Bass Rankin has been a part of telling every freaking story that matters to Americans. And I mean like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like classic, cemented, right? Frosty Snowman, Santa Claus, Year Without Santa Claus, right? The original Hobbit, The Return of the King, right? The Flight of the Dragons. It's that all the epics were touched by Bass Rankin. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm simply saying that we need to acknowledge like who Bass Rankin is, right? We actually need to acknowledge who Bass Rankin is. So I'm going to pull this up on the screen. So this will make it some easier conversation. If I can figure out what screen it is. Desktop. What are you? 3. No. 4. No, that's 4. Okay, now we're getting there. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, it has to be desktop 2. It has to be 2. Well, God damn it if it's not. Wow. That is a kick in the head right there. Okay. So you take a look at this screen right here, and I'm telling you, if you guys will recognize this stuff, Bass Rankin has really been out there, like just telling the tale of American culture. This company was really inside of us, for my entire generation. For my entire generation, like no joke, man, most of the stuff that we watch, Arthur stories, biblical stories, like, I don't know where they came from. I don't know how they got started. But just incredible storytelling. So this is who is really telling the story. Like, they really get into working on American culture. And I feel like this is all before we got to Disney. Okay, so what was Bass Rankin's absolute heyday in terms of production company? I gotta figure this out because this matters. Again, I'm Generation X, so I know I was well within that domain. It's golden era from 1964 to 1982. Okay. And so this overlaps exactly with Generation X, right? Their heyday was Generation X, right? And this is an important thing. Like, this is an important thing. Like, so Bass Rankin as a company, their whole entire like way of being, like their entire company status overlapped culturally with Generation X. It's almost as if they were built to program us specifically. Like they took on shaping the biggest cultural stories, especially with fantasy stuff. I gotta keep this graphic up on the screen. Let me pull this one up here, right? Let me pull this one up here. Where's my Discord folder? So I hadn't really thought about it in this way of how connected as a generation we were with bass ranking. I really had not thought about it in this light. But if we really pull it up now, they overlap. Like, this is the overlapping of all of our fantasy stories, 1964 to 1982. If we go year by year, they had The Hobbit with them. Now, okay. This is telling me a lot about the company that made him. I'm just saying, if you guys don't know about bass ranking, like I said, you can go back and you can just pick, like, look at the fantasy stuff they got. The Hobbit, The Flight of the Dragons, like that was our definitive. That was our definitive. Like, we had Disney, but Disney wasn't really, like, man, Disney did some stuff too. I'm trying to think, man, like Disney, because Disney had like the Black Cauldron. Disney had some bangers too. I have to throw it in there, but like, who else was really making stuff for fantasy culture? What other companies? Like, I know Disney in that period of time had Black Cauldron. Like, what else was going on in fantasy culture? Okay, so Disney, so it's called Disney's Dark Era, right? And I'm telling you, I love Disney's Dark Era. I love Disney's Dark Era, right? Like the Dragon Slay, everything here. Everything here. You notice, like, the first thing I brought up was the Black Cauldron, right? Like, that's one of my favorites from childhood. Like, that's deep. It gets a little kiddie, but like, if you go back and watch this, and then you watch later, like Dungeons and Dragons, like the initial Dungeons and Dragons games, right? Like, man, what was the name of that main one, man? It wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, but it was like, the Castle Siege dude, man. Like, at any rate, man, like, you would go in there and you were just gonna die, but you would take it on the castle, and it was always based around night. So a lot of it comes from right here, right? So this is that era. So like, they're giving it to the Black Cauldron, like I said. Return to Oz also was there. And this is when, like, TSR and Dungeons and Dragons was really getting foundation, right? So you also had, Dungeons and Dragons would jump off. Dragonlance would jump off. Forgotten Realms would jump off. I read all those. Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms are deep lore. And Greyhawk, which I didn't get into. So this is where, like, an entire generation, we're all getting all of our myths about dragons, about elves, about wizards, about quests, about magic systems, like all the stuff that you see going on in Stranger Things when these cats are sitting at the table. That's stuff that we were doing. Like, we were heavily invested culturally in fantasy realm. Like, it was a whole different thing. And this is where the foundations of fantasy was coming from. Also, of course, my man Conan was also on the scene. So, like, Conan the Barbarian, which of course was it. Conan the Destroyer. You would have the Dark Crystal, the Labyrinth. So, like this era, again, X, we were deep in fantasy culture. Like, we were just dripping in fantasy culture right now. And these would be this how we would start interpreting the story. So The Last Unicorn, man, it sits right there. It sits right there culturally, as relevant as anything else, right? Like, absolutely. This is just an extremely relevant cultural, right, expression. And again, to me, I always like keeping our animation on the scene, because at the time, like I said, Disney was carrying it. Like, here's the thing, like, right, man, Dark Disney, I'm actually nostalgic for Dark Disney. Like, when did Dark Disney end? Like, expand on the Dark Disney era. Because I didn't ever think about Disney as having its dark era, but Disney absolutely had a dark era, and it was, the storytelling was off the hook. Okay, so again, this is 1979 to 1988, and I'm assuming, like, okay, the company was losing Cultural Revival, right? The Black Hole, man, like, the Black Hole came out, and I'm telling you guys, this was a terrible movie. It really was a terrible movie. Like, I watched it and consumed it, and I love it. You know how it is? I'm a kid when this comes out. Like, Black Hope comes out, I'm like 7. So, you know, for me, I'm like, yeah, this is it. Like, I didn't care. It was a raggedy, like, it wasn't any good. And the story wasn't really great. But, we didn't really care, man. I'm telling you. In 1979, we really didn't care if your story was good or nothing. In any way, shape, or form. The fact that you were doing it, that you were going up into space, I'm going to sit down and watch that space movie, right? So that's what was going on. Like, this was kind of weird. And I think it flopped, man. I think it was, like, culturally a flop. The Watch in the Woods, which I don't remember that. Dragon Slayer, which, like, man. This was it right here. Like, Dragon Slayer, you know, it put dragons in just, dragons are more just, dragons are real, right? Like, we ain't tripping. There's a dragon right over there. Look, watch out, there's a dragon over here. They're not all mythical, right? They're intelligent. They are intelligent, but they're basically like douches, right? Like, they're just multiplying, and it's a problem. And they can be killed. They're just really hard to kill. So this is kind of where a lot of like the myth is really percolating. So a lot of our foundation for fantasy stuff that you're seeing right now, just like they were showing you Game of Thrones, this is when all this stuff was really, really growing. So Gen X stuff, like, we're heavily consuming this stuff. This is foundational. Like, this is where the foundational for all this stuff is getting formed. Oh man, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Man, that was off the hook. Like, film as well. This is Ray Bradbury. Like, this is also great culturally. Like, and it deals with some different things, but it's kind of a magical theme. And then, like I said, the Black Cauldron, 1985. You get the Horn King. You get necromancy. You get undead warriors, dark magic. So this is it. Return to Oz will come out soon. So we're prime, okay? So we're slathering up on the stuff by the time The Last Unicorn gets here. And we're ready for it, man. We're ready for everything that The Last Unicorn has to offer, right? Like, all of it. All the archetypes, the new villains, talking to a divine being, like, culturally, what that means. Like, what culturally we're saying right now. What we're afraid of losing, right? What's our cultural identity? And all this stuff is wrapped into it. Now, and here's the thing. And again, I gotta give you guys like some cultural like grounding. Okay, that's what I gotta ground it culturally. The 60s, like, when this stuff is percolating, like, again, we gotta talk about who is actually doing it. Because I was children when this stuff came out, it means we weren't the ones who were making this stuff. And I'm gonna tell you guys who it was. It was in boomers, right? And like, you guys know I talk a lot of trash about boomers. But they were the ones that were making all the stuff that was foundational for my childhood. And we love this stuff. Like, they were making this is beautiful, amazing cultural tradition that the boomers were passing down to us, right? That we would manifest. They would dream up. Now, how these guys were dreaming up all this fantasy stuff, well, we're not going to talk about their drug use, okay? We're not going to talk about the type of drugs that was going on. In fact, you know what? Okay. So during this period of time, the people who are creating all this fiction are basically our parents' generation. So these are all boomers who are doing this. And what kind of drugs were on the scene during this period of time? What were they doing? What was that generation doing in terms of drugs at this period of time? Not that this matters at all, right? Not that this matters at all, like what was going on. And I don't know what they were doing, okay? Late 70s, everybody's just psychedelics. Okay, let's see. Okay, Silent Generation. Okay, counterculture. So they were counterculture, and it's not naming people. Obviously, it's talking about when they were born. They all are boomers, right? Luke is born in 44. Jim Henson, 36. Peter Beagle, born 1939. Right, George R. Martin, born in 1948. So they're all like in that cluster, right? They are generationally clustered together, right? So these are 100% boomers. Now, what were the drugs that were jumping off? And this is the counterculture period, right? This is after the Vietnam War. This is civil rights movement. This is counterculture movement. Like, this is who they are. This is who they are, right? So who are they? What was going on? There's a lot of weed going on. There's a lot of marijuana. There's a lot of LSD. This was the age, like hashish, mescaline, like especially among artists, musicians, writers, college students. I'm not saying that any of these people had anything to do with it, but I'm saying somebody in the production chain did. Somebody at some level, either a writer or editor, somebody in that, an artist, somebody, this is a part of their culture as well, right? We take the sum of every part of a culture, and it's like, this is the culture that produces work. I'm not saying that they were all high. I'm just saying this was the 60s, and we know the kind of drugs that were going on. So it's not surprising that those boomers would make something like this, right? And we ate it up. As Gen X, the children of them, we ate up this culture that they were producing. We love Jim Henson's work. We love all this stuff. And were they getting high all the time? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe that would explain how you come up with the Muppets, because that didn't just come out of nowhere, right? That didn't just come out of nowhere. But anyway, this is what was going on at that period of time, right? At that time, this is what's going on. So all the Tolkien stuff, and then again, this is Joseph Campbell, who also had a heavy influence on what would be Star Wars. So we got to look at all the stuff leading into it. And not that Gen X was bad. I'm simply saying, watch the other stuff that was going on in this era. Like, when I was a kid, we were also telling movies about Scarface and cocaine trafficking. Who was that about? Same people, right? I'm just saying, we know what they produce in terms of movie. I'm just saying, Miami Vice was a reality, right? Those two things go together if we're going to understand who the people who developed all these stories were. Beautiful stories that shaped my childhood. Everything that I watched, they knew exactly what we wanted. They were able to not only to market to us, but give us damn stuff that we want. And we love, all this stuff, right? Every part of it. Because we get all these archetypes that we see in this film, right? So we get the unicorn himself. And then we get another look at a wizard. And this is in Smendrick. And I'm going to talk about him. Then we get Molly. And then we get this force that is the Red Bull. Then King Haggard. Like, each one of them kind of represents something in this mythic order, right? So this film comes out in 1982. It's all about identity. It's all about memory. It's all about impermanence, like that you will go away and hanging on. It's about captivity. It's about corruption. It is a story about self-discovery in a lot of ways, and it is foundational to other stories that we would tell about myths. Okay, so this is where I'm hanging out. So the story that goes down here is a simple story.